Hi everyone and welcome to the latest All Out Football Premier League podcast. I'm your host Ben Jaycock and I'm delighted to say I'm joined today by the gaffer David Robinson, Derby fanatic Tom Rodgers and passionate neutral Richard Phelps. In today's podcast we'll be discussing the intense relegation battle, the continuing problems with VAR, Timo Werner snubbing European Champions Liverpool to join Chelsea, Sky TV's interesting coverage of the Premier League, and we'll each be sharing our unpopular football opinions. So we'll just start by telling you what we're all about. All Out Football is an opinion-based football website that produces industry-standard articles on a day-to-day basis on numerous controversial topics surrounding the beautiful game. You can find us at www.alloutfootball.co.uk or on Twitter using our handle @alloutfootball_. Now let's get to it. Okay, so we'll start off with you, David. As a Watford fan, what are your chances of staying up this season?
I think we've got a good chance of staying up purely because I do rate us as the best team in the battle myself. I don't think that's biased particularly. I think we have had a terrible opening months to the season. I think we won one game in 17 and we got it completely wrong. But I think now we're in this run-in, I fancy ourselves and Brighton in attempt to avoid the drop. That being said, with the way that we started, it's all to play for. I think it's become more of a level playing field. So I think it's a very difficult prediction to make. Who's gonna get relegated?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Obviously, West Ham losing 2-0 last night to Tottenham is a bit of a blow for them, especially with Chelsea up next at the London Stadium. But they seem to have quite good fixtures after that. Aston Villa have a terrible run of games. It's struggling to see where they're going to pick up the necessary points to stay up. And it seems like Watford and Bournemouth kind of have a bit of a mixed bag of difficult and winnable games. So I'll just go around the panel. Richard, who are your three teams to go down this season?
Well, I think Norwich are down. They were 6 points adrift when the return of football began, and I watched the game against Southampton, and they showed no fight or anything. 3-0. I mean, first half was quite close, but second half they just didn't look up for it. And in a relegation fight, if you're not willing to put your body on the line or whatever and come together as a group, then you're just not going to survive. And the point situation was already against them being so far adrift. So I think they'll definitely go. Like you say, I think Villa will go as well. I expected them maybe to get a win or a draw against Chelsea. They got the draw against Sheffield United, but again, they need 3 points in those sort of games if they're going to be staying up. And then I think Bournemouth as well, which is quite surprising, just because you've always kind of thought of them as a safe bet to stay up because they do play at times, good football, but that seems to have gone away from them a bit, and the fixtures aren't great. And Palace at home as your first game back, you've just got to be winning those sort of games. And once again, within 20 minutes, 25 minutes, the game was done when Palace scored the second goal. So I think they'll be the three to go. But I saw West Ham last night, and there's a chance they could go as well. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, you certainly make valid points. Tom, who are your three?
Yeah, I think Richard's hit the nail on the head with that one. Norwich looked long gone for me. They were terrible against Southampton. They defend so narrow, and you saw with just the third goal, all Redmond had to do was knock the ball to one side and stick it in the bottom corner. So I think they're gone for me. Aston Villa's running is just so difficult. They've got a couple of games soon against Newcastle and Wolves where they really need to see if they can pick up a couple of points there, because then they've got to go to Anfield and then play Man United also. The important one with there, they've got West Ham away for the last game of the season, and that could prove to be the vital game. And then my last team are Bournemouth. I just not seen enough from Bournemouth for me this season. They've been good previous years, but not as good as I think people make out. So I think this will be time for them to go.
Yeah, I mean, you've all and David, is your three the exact same?
More or less, I think I agree with everything the lads have said there. But I do also think that with the way we've seen the games play out so far, very slow and even contests, and obviously with the rule changes and being allowed more subs, I think it really does throw it wide open. So I can see Aston Villa um, equally going down. I definitely don't think you should rule out Watford and Brighton in that mix as well. I think every team's got a few opportunities to get some points. But no, I think I'd go along with Norwich, probably Bournemouth and Aston Villa. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think teams like with West Ham are they're well, they're not lucky, but if it does play out like that, they'll be very fortunate to stay up because I don't think they've been good enough this season to warrant a Premier League place. I saw them at the weekend against Wolves at home. They seem like a side that are out of fight. And last night was slightly better against Spurs, but I still think David Moyes was too cautious in that game. I thought they set up for a draw. Once they went 1-0 down, kind of unfortunate due to the VAR decision, which we'll move on to in a minute. But after that, it was an uphill task, and I think that they're certainly in the mix as well. So yeah, moving on to VAR. Obviously, I think we all saw last night's incident in the build-up to Tottenham's first goal. It was an own goal by Souček, but the ball clearly strikes the outstretched hand of Davison Sanchez, and on the way to hitting Souček and going in the back of the net. Incredibly unfortunate for a side that are desperate for points and were hanging on in the game. I think Tottenham. We can all say Tottenham deserved the win. That they were much the better side, but when you're facing the drop, you can't be having moments go against you like that. And yeah, it's very unfortunate. And then I think after that, 1-0 down, West Ham, the game became more stretched. West Ham opened up, and then Harry Kane on the counter attack does what he does best and puts the game beyond sight. But Richard, I presume you saw the game. What's your thoughts on the incident and the use of VAR in general since its introduction in the Premier League?
Well, last night, I mean, it's difficult to see how they've not overturned that decision because when Son scored in the first half, like straight away, pretty much, you knew like, hang on, they're checking it, and then 20 seconds later or whatever, they've made the decision it's ruled out because his toe was like just offside, and yet with the first goal from Tottenham, with Souček own goal, you just, I don't know, like it just didn't look like it was ever going to get overturned, and I don't know why. Like there wasn't as many protests from the players, and the conversation didn't seem to be meaningful with the ref. And I mean, like you say, when West Ham are fighting a relegation battle, that could be the difference between them staying up or going down. And I mean, in terms of introduction, this season, at times I think it's been used correctly. I think, like for example, I saw the Tottenham Man U game where they gave the second penalty, and the ref gave it, but it turns out that Fernandes, I don't think he dived, but I mean, there wasn't really any contact with Dyer, so they did well to overturn that. But then you see like the Villa Sheffield United game. I mean, that's just got to be one of the worst decisions of all time. I mean, I don't understand how VAR has not overturned that. They had the capabilities of doing so, but yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to have to be something we get used to. I think overall they're going to get most decisions right, but sometimes they're not, and yeah, it's just a real shame.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a real shame, especially when points are at stake, and the fact that the reason they brought VAR in is to get these decisions right, but then somehow they're not getting them right. And you saw at the end of the game, I don't know if anyone saw, but in Sky Sports coverage, we only had to look at the incident twice to know it was handball, and the goal shouldn't have stood. So I mean, I'll go to you, David. I know you're certainly not VAR's biggest fan. due to the decisions that have gone against your club, Watford. Would you say there's? I mean, it's a bold statement, but do you think there's a bit of a big team bias when it comes to VAR decisions?
I think that could be right, Ben. Whether there is sort of any evidence to back that up, I'm not too sure. But I think Richard's being quite polite there myself. I think VAR it's been a complete disgrace. Let's not beat around the bush. It's this whole season has been an embarrassment really from start to finish. And when there's millions and millions of pounds up for stake, up for grabs, we simply can't be dealing with this sort of level of incompetence that's been thrown our way. I think it is insulting to people like myself that go to the ground every other week and have to put up with this level of incompetence from the officials. I don't think it's necessarily VAR as a system. I think it's the way it's been implemented. Just completely no consistency. They've changed their approach throughout the season. And at the end of the day, whether it's biased towards the top teams, to answer your question, it's difficult to know, but it certainly hasn't benefited Watford, my club. I mean, we've been caught out by the most scandalous decisions this season. Ones that are just beyond belief. And when you've got the technology there, there's simply no excuses whatsoever.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, there's been controversy since its introduction. In terms of fans can't seem to celebrate a goal properly because you never know if a goal's going to be chalked off or not, which kind of takes a lot of the emotion and the passion out of the game for the fan going supporter. So, Tom, I'm going to ask you, if you had the chance, would you take it out of the game?
I think it's really hard at the minute to decide that because it's just obviously it's in its first season. It's in the teething process. So it's hard to say, but I personally don't like it. I liked it during the World Cup in 2018. I thought it was really good there. They're really efficient with it. But as soon as it's come into the Premier League, it's been shambolic. I thought with the restart, with no fans, it'll be easier for the referee to make decisions without the pressure, but it doesn't seem to be the case. But I think it'd be hard to take it out now. I think the league will come under a lot of criticism for it. I don't think they want to turn around and say, "Oh, we got this wrong," because you very rarely see the Premier League do that. So I think it's a difficult one.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's quite ironic that the Premier League is promoted as the richest league and the best league in the world, and these decisions just continue to get worse and worse. But no, we'll move on, and we'll move on to Chelsea's transfer dealings. The Blues have acquired Hakim Ziyech and Timo Werner, showcasing owner Roman Abramovich's intent to bring silverware back to Stamford Bridge. Rich, do you think these signings make Chelsea genuine title contenders next season?
I still think they're a little bit short. I think, but then again, I wouldn't be surprised if they spend a bit more money. I think Werner and Ziyech will improve the team no end. Ziyech is a fabulous player. I saw him a lot for Ajax in the Champions League. Technically, he's just brilliant. I just hope, from a neutral perspective, I hope that he settles well into the league, because I think, fans, Premier League fans all over the world would enjoy seeing him. Werner, I think, will be fine. I think that the Premier League will suit his sort of style of play. He's quick and he's strong. I imagine he'll score quite a few goals. I think he'd be best suited to play up front on his own. I'm not sure a partnership with Tammy or Giroud, if he's still there, would work necessarily, because obviously you've got players like Pulisic and Ziyech to fit in as well. Because I imagine Pulisic will become first team next season. I think Willian and Pedro are quite likely to leave. But even though their attack, would be up there with the best, I just think defensively they're not quite solid enough to be up there with Liverpool and Man City. I mean, the goalkeeper situation is still one that is a bit shifty, and players like Azpilicueta have been great servants, Kante as well, but I just feel like you need those sort of Van Dijks, Laportes, just commanding defenders if you're going to go on and win the league. And I'm not quite sure Chelsea have that just yet.
Tom, you recently put up a YouTube video on why Timo Werner would fit into Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool side, which I highly recommend watching, by the way, on Tom's channel, Tom Rodgers. But now the obvious question is, now he's signed for Chelsea, is how will he fit into Chelsea's team?
I'm interested for what Lampard's going to do with that system, to be fair. He was very 4-3-3 based when he was at Derby, and he's taken that with him to Chelsea. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the left-hand side of a front three with Ziyech on the right and Tammy straight up front. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do there. I also think I would cash in on Kante if I was Lampard. I think I'd take what you can get for him now. I think he's been great for Chelsea and Leicester, but I think time's up for him now. I think a few of the more English lads deserve the chance in the midfield. Like, so obviously Loftus-Cheek, Mount, Gilmour. So I think without a few players leaving, then that English core is going to quickly diminish. So, but like Richard said, I think there are a few players short. They need a couple of defenders at least. I don't think Kepa's the most sounding goal. So I think they're still a fair bit away from Man City and Liverpool.
And how big of a blow is it to Liverpool losing out on Werner, do you think?
I'd say, it's fairly big that they've missed out on that much talent for the price. But they still do they've got Sadio Mane, Mo Salah and Firmino, so they're arguably the best front three in world football. So I don't think Klopp will be too disappointed as long as none of that front three leaves within the next couple of years.
No, absolutely. Moving on to our next topic on the agenda, our unpopular opinions. So I'm sure this is going to spark some debate across the board. Richard, we'll start with yours.
Mine's one I've mentioned to you before. I'll just say that the Real Madrid team that won 3 Champions Leagues in a row, four in 5 years, I don't put them up there with the best teams like we've seen in our lifetime or whatever. I just feel like they were very good at what they needed to do, like win knockout games. But I mean, they threw away the league most of those seasons. They just said, Barcelona, there you go, you have the league. We're just focusing on Europe. And I feel like the best teams they fight on all fronts. And even in the Champions League, there were so many games where they'd lose the first leg and then they'd have to bring it back to the Bernabeu and Ronaldo would save them. And in terms of an actual team, they had some very good players, but apart from Ronaldo, who was the absolute star, when you think of great teams, they have multiple players that are just world class players, and they do have some of them players, but I feel like Ronaldo saved them so often that personally, when you talk about these great teams, the Barcelona under Pep Guardiola, and maybe this Liverpool team if they go on to win more trophies, I wouldn't put that Real Madrid team up there with them, even though they had without doubt one of the best players of all time.
So you wouldn't class people like Marcelo, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Gareth Bale. You wouldn't class them as world class?
Well, at times, I mean, Modric, I'd say yes. Ramos on his day is very good too. I think the players like him and Marcelo, they're very hit and miss. From a disciplinary point of view, sometimes they can just lose their heads. Toni Kroos is another one. He's a very good player, but I do think he's a little bit overrated for the things he offers. And Gareth Bale, I mean, he was in and out of the team, and they were always chopping and changing with Asensio and Isco and players like that. I think Benzema was a constant. I think he's very underrated. I mean, I don't think they could have done what they did without him, because he set a lot of goals up for Ronaldo. He was very important to that team, but yeah, as an actual team, I wouldn't put them up there with the best that we've seen.
David, what's your thoughts on Richard's unpopular opinion?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Actually, I think it's quite a good one. I think it just shows more than anything that cup football is very different to league football, and I think when you show your qualities over the course of a league season, you really do find out who the best team is, and I think we've seen in previous competitions in recent years that doesn't mean the best team will win the cup competitions. And yeah, we saw that with Spurs getting to the Champions League final not too long ago. So yeah, I think Real Madrid were never really that impressive when they won all the Champions Leagues that they did. But they were very workmanlike, and when you've got someone of Ronaldo's class that can separate a game, and obviously I definitely think they've got more than just Ronaldo in there for sure. But no, they just found a way one way or another. But no, I completely agree with what Richard said there.
Any thoughts, Tom?
I think, well, I think they were a very good side. You don't win 4 out of 5 Champions Leagues not being a great side, but I understand where both Richard and David are coming from with the point. I think Richard said about they were always chopping and changing Bale, Isco, Asensio, but I think you need that in a squad. Like throughout the amount of games you play throughout the whole season, if you're going to play all your league games, you get into cup finals, you need to use all your squad. But they were good, yes, but they weren't out of this world. I wouldn't have them. I thought like the AC Milan side of say 2005 and 2007. I thought they were actually probably better than that Real Madrid side.
Okay, yeah. So David, a man of many unpopular opinions. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, I think this one is probably not going to be too popular with Liverpool fans. My unpopular opinion is regarding their Brazilian goalkeeper, Alisson. I do not rate Alisson as highly as everyone else seems to. There's no doubt that Liverpool's defence has come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years. And obviously, with some of the goalkeepers Liverpool have had previously have been pretty woeful, I think it's fair to say. So there's no doubt Alisson's improved them. But for me, people completely overlook perhaps just how good he is. And I think he's a good goalkeeper, but I do think he's prone to his fair share of mistakes, shall we say. And yeah, I just think that gets completely overlooked. I think in his first season, particularly his distribution, I thought was questionable. He'd make, I've watched him closely since he's joined, and he doesn't seem to get punished too often. When he has made a mistake, it hasn't always led to a goal, and I think that it's done him a service for sure. So yeah, I think that's my unpopular opinion.
There's a battle between Ederson and Alisson for the Brazil #1 jersey. I presume you'd have Ederson, would you then, David?
Obviously, I really rate Ederson. His distribution is phenomenal, and obviously with a goalkeeper, that isn't the most important part. So I think that has to be stated. Whereas Alisson is fairly dependable when it comes to shot stopping. But he's certainly not invincible. Would I have Ederson over Alisson? Just through personal preference, I would. I understand both keepers have to concentrate throughout 90 minutes because they aren't tested as much. So I think that definitely needs to be considered. But for me, Alisson is overrated, and I think there's reasons for that.
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, I completely agree with you. I think he does get away with a lot of errors that he makes in the media, but maybe because he's surrounded by great players, he gets away with it. Where would Alisson be? So out of the top, obviously the 20 Premier League #1s, where does he rank then for you on that list?
Well, for me, I think it is incredibly difficult to rate goalkeepers. We see with Alisson, obviously, he's tested very rarely in comparison to the likes of Dean Henderson, Ben Foster, these sort of keepers. It's very difficult to pinpoint one that's better than the rest. I think you look at recent form and the last couple of years, and I think Alisson is dependable, but I think we always see these keepers at the bottom, towards the bottom of the league, that really excel and probably are more deserving of Team of the Year positions purely because of the work that they go through and how important they can be to a team. Whereas I think Alisson, for me, I think he has been carried by Van Dijk, very much so, and he does look the part in goal. Um, when it comes to rating one above the other, he's definitely a top keeper in the league. But for me, he's certainly not the best goalkeeper in the world. Gets thrown around a lot, and that's something I completely reject as an idea.
Tom, what are your thoughts on David's unpopular opinion?
No, I agree with him. To be fair, like I said, it's hard to rate keepers, and I do think the keepers further down the league, like Ben Foster for Watford, they're very underrated because of how many shots they face, etc., etc. I'd put Alisson in the same bracket as when Victor Valdez was in goal for Barcelona. He was very rarely tested in great sides, so I agree with David in what he's saying. I think, yeah, Alisson, he looks the part. He's good. He's good with his feet, with what Klopp wants. But if I had to pick between him and Ederson, I would personally go for Ederson.
Rich, is David being a bit harsh on Alisson?
I think maybe a tad. I think the reason why Liverpool fans and the media, really get behind him is just because of how good he is compared to what they've had before. So David mentioned, the previous goalkeepers like Mignolet and Karius, and he is definitely, multiple levels above them. But I'd pick Ederson over Alisson as well, just because I think you gain more from Ederson's distribution and the fact that Ederson is a very competent goalkeeper as well, albeit one again that doesn't get tested as much. But when he is tested, like Alisson, they both do pull off the saves when they need to. But yeah, personally, I prefer Ederson. His distribution is just, I've never seen anything like it. But I do believe Alisson is a top goalkeeper as well. But it is difficult to compare him to, your Nick Popes and Fabianskis and goalkeepers like that who, they do play for teams that face more shots, and they more often than not than they pull off the saves as well.
Yeah. So finally, Tom, what is your unpopular opinion?
I think mine will be fairly unpopular, but I don't think Harry Kane should lead the line for England at Euro 2021.
Wow. So we've had two opinions that have actually been quite popular across the board, and now we've had yours that is finally unpopular. Certainly with myself. Tom, you must have some kind of reason for this.
Yeah, I think for Spurs, he's fantastic. He's great. He scores plenty of goals, etc., and he just fits their system perfectly. But I think for England, he doesn't bring a lot to the table for England. For me, he's not very good. Like holding, I don't think England need a hold-up player in this system Southgate's got going, and I just think we should be looking to play a more mobile front three. So if it was me, I'd be playing Sterling, Sancho, and Rashford. I think they're all interchangeable. I think if you look at some of the good sides now, like France, they're all about pace, and I just think they're more well suited. I think we've been more suited to that with Southgate.
But surely you can't drop one. He's the captain, and second of all, he had a fantastic World Cup where he was actually the Golden Boot winner. Surely you can't drop him because his form for England hasn't been bad at all. Remember that goal he scored away at Spain, that historical moment. But surely his form hasn't been bad enough to drop him for England.
No, I don't think his form has been terrible. I just think watching England when we come up in the big games, I don't think he particularly turns up. Like in the World Cup, he obviously got the Golden Boot, but 3 of those were penalties, which 2 were against Panama in the group. I just don't think when we played Croatia, I thought he was non-existent until the chance where he could have scored or squared it to Sterling, and obviously he made the wrong decision there. But I just don't think he brings enough to this England side.
Richard, you're an incredibly passionate England fan. What's going on in your head at the moment?
I get what Tom's saying, and I think he definitely could be proved to be right, because just from watching Kane these first 2 games back from his long layoff, he's not played since New Year's Day, and he's not looked good. He's not looked that good. He scored last night, but he in the overall play of the 90 minutes, he wasn't involved too much. And against Man United, he barely had a kick. So I think, because obviously the Euros is another year off, then there is a good possibility that Kane might not be in the starting 11. I mean, it's quite hard to believe because he is the captain. He's well on the way to getting near Wayne Rooney's all-time goals record, and he did have I think he did have a good World Cup. But Tom's right in terms of like the Colombia game. I mean, he obviously scored the penalty, but he didn't do too much else. And against Croatia, he was quiet as well. So I think if we are looking to become winners of these big competitions, then maybe Southgate would have to make a difficult decision like that. But the only thing I'd say is that with Harry Kane, he does tend to score the goals, and I just feel like even if we had a more fluid front three, I'm not sure Rashford, he's played striker a bit for Man U, and he always tends to maybe be better on the left. I don't think Sterling or Sancho would be too effective in that role. So, I mean, unless we called somebody else up, obviously Vardy's currently retired. I mean, I don't think he's going to come out of retirement, and he's getting old as well. Tammy Abraham, I think he'd have to show a bit more for Chelsea before we could consider him as a starter. But yeah, I think there is a chance that Kane could end up not being first choice, possibly even in time for the next Euros.
David, Harry Kane is certainly in at least the top 5, in my opinion, strikers in the world right now. There's only a few that are ahead of him, the likes of Lewandowski, Suarez, and co. Surely we can't throw away an amazing number 9, which a lot of nations cherish, like him, can we?
We certainly can't, in my opinion. No, I can see what Tom's saying, perhaps with in terms of systems. I think obviously building a system, finding that style is very important. But I think Harry Kane gets in, as you say, most nations would absolutely love to have a player of his ability. And to disregard one of England's few world-class players, to me, is a ridiculous statement, to be honest. No, I think he just gets goals. He's a goal scorer. I completely take on point that, there's a few games in the World Cup where he wasn't that effective. He sort of scored a few penalties, which perhaps boosted his goal tally. But no, he'll always find the net, and he's got more than just that as well. He can certainly link the likes of Sterling, Sancho, Rashford. He can bring them into play, and I think he's got so much to offer. Obviously, with his fitness at the minute, it's a bit of an issue, but Harry Kane is exactly what England need. We just need for him to deliver when it matters most.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, David. All right, thank you for all your unpopular opinions. I think definitely Tom's is certainly the most unpopular. So well done, Tom, on that award. Moving on to Sky TV's Premier League coverage since the return of the league. Let's be honest, it hasn't been great. You've had the crowd noise completely out of time in games, where just sort of exaggerations, or when there was missed chance of the U, it's just completely out of time. You've had fans celebrating goals when it's gone out for a throw in or gone out for a goal kick. It's just completely messed up. The kind of the viewing experience. It's not really what we expect. People that are paying serious amounts of money to subscribe to Sky, I don't think are getting what they deserved. I mean, you've got crowd chants going against the happenings on the pitch. I don't know if any of you saw the Man City Arsenal game. Man City were 3-0 up, obviously, and all you could hear was the Arsenal fans singing Arsenal over and over again. I mean, I know the atmosphere at the Etihad certainly isn't the best, but you definitely wouldn't have Arsenal fans out singing Man City 3-0 down, or you wouldn't think you would. You've seen it in other leagues, in the Bundesliga, or the first to bring crowd noise, and I think it works really really well from there. I mean, I know Tom, you're an avid Bundesliga watcher. It seems like what they have as an advantage is in terms of atmosphere. In England, it's peaks and troughs, and a lot of troughs when it comes to atmosphere and chants. Whereas in Germany, from what I've witnessed, it seems like there's like 2 or 3 chants, and it's continuous throughout the whole game, which obviously is a lot easier to control than it is in England, where there isn't atmosphere throughout the whole game. It just doesn't happen at Premier League grounds. You've also witnessed an absolute obsession with Liverpool winning the league. Obviously, they have to advertise any Liverpool game when they've got a chance of winning the Premier League. Of course they have, but you cannot completely ignore the opposition in terms of advertisement, pundit choice, and overall media attention. I mean, you saw the advert for the Liverpool Crystal Palace game, which is tonight, I believe, or at the time of we're filming this. And it's ridiculous that they've sold it as this game where Liverpool are going to win the league, but they're not now. And now they've completely thrown that advert out there, which has misled a lot of people. And they didn't mention Crystal Palace once, which is just ultimately completely disrespectful, in my opinion. So as I'm going to go to you, Richard, as a trained sports journalist that has worked in video production in the past. Richard, what's your thoughts on Sky's coverage in these difficult circumstances, it must be said?
Yeah, I think it is difficult. The crowd noise situation, it's not been great. I watched the Leicester Brighton game yesterday, and when Schmeichel saved Maupay's penalty, if that was real life, the crowd were going, oh, way. But literally all you heard was, it was quite bad. But I have been watching it with the crowd noise because I just can't deal with the just hearing shouting and like no noise like that. That bugs me even more. So I think even though it's not been perfect, like I still would choose the crowd noise over not having it. In terms of the Liverpool coverage, the advert thing, that's quite bad. I saw the advert, and I mean, I think tonight's game is going to be tough. I wouldn't be surprised if Palace gets and given how badly Liverpool played on against Everton and how well Crystal Palace played against Bournemouth. So they might even shoot themselves even more in the foot if Liverpool don't win tonight. But I mean, I didn't think the Everton game was too biased in favour of Liverpool. I think before the coronavirus outbreak, everything was just quite biased towards Liverpool in terms of the coverage. But that's not going to go away. I mean, the game tonight and then next up for them is Man City. So then, they're all going to be talking about it there as well. They could possibly win the league against them. So, but I think overall they've not done too badly. And some of the insight is still pretty good, which is, what I enjoy to watch from Gary Neville and Carragher and some others as well. But I think they're doing okay in what is difficult circumstances. But, the instances you've pointed out and others as well, that they could be doing better. Yeah,
absolutely. David, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd probably agree with a lot of what Richard said there. I think in terms of coverage, though, I think it's not new news to realise what Sky are about. I think anyone outside the top 6 doesn't really exist in their eyes. And it's completely unsurprising to see an advert where it's Liverpool versus Crystal Palace, but really you'd have no idea that Palace were playing in this match. Simply in terms of insight and analysis, it's all focused on the top 6. And I think they've obviously got a bit of a difficult task in terms of livening up the atmosphere, which is ironic, really, considering they're so reliant on fans being at the stadiums, despite them not really taking an interest in the fans. I think it's painting a picture really of what we're having to deal with in terms of the level of football and how completely different it is at the minute.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Tom, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think they've both said what they need to say perfectly. I think I can't watch like Richard said, can't watch the games without the crowd noise. I just doesn't give you that authentic feel of watching a game. I just can't stand that, so I'll watch it with the crowd noise. But like I said, it's all been a bit of a mess. I know obviously they're still trying to learn what to do with it, but I just think they're just getting it all wrong, and the Premier League is showing their true colours for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be there. I think the crowd noise does have to be there. I mean, I tried watching the League Two playoff semi-final. It's Colchester against Exeter, and I had to turn it off in the end because it was just it was like it's been played in the park. It was like a local village game. You know, it's just, and obviously it's not. It's no disrespect to either team because obviously it's a massive game in their seasons, but from a neutral point of view, I couldn't get into it because it just sounded like a very low level friendly, to be honest. So yeah, I do think it needs to be there. But no, that's great. That's all we have time for today on our Premier League All Out Football podcast. So make sure to go on our website at www.alloutfootball.co.uk to browse through our fantastic opinion-based articles and to follow all you need to know on our Twitter at alloutfootball_. I've been your host, Ben Jaycock, and goodbye for now.